Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. People often ask me why we don't do joint ventures and affiliates like everybody else does on the internet. Now, when you consider that we've been around for almost 16 years, why would we not grow our business like everybody else? And one of the reasons is that I always wanted to be like someone just starting out. I wanted to look at the client right in the eyes and say, I don't have joint ventures, I don't have affiliates, I don't do advertising. What we do, however, is we create irresistibility. We create irresistibility in many ways, and that's what makes psychotactics work for us. And that's what you can do. Even as a beginner, even as you're launching a new product or service, the one thing that you have on your side is to create a factor of irresistibility. And this series tackles that point. This series looks at how you can be a complete beginner. And all of us are beginners because if you're launching a new product or a service, it's still a starting point. The critical thing is, why should the customer pay attention to you? And that's what this podcast is all about.
This is the 3-Month Vacation. I'm Sean D'Souza. Imagine you're Frank Sinatra. No matter where you go on the planet, people know of you. Doors open magically for you. People can't help but gape in wonder as you show up at an event. So imagine a place where the great Frank Sinatra cannot enter. It's inconceivable, isn't it? And yet it happened. When Frank Sinatra showed up at Studio 54, he was turned away. So was the president of Cyprus, the king of Saudi Arabia's son, Roberta Flack, and several other young Kennedys. Even the famous movie star Jack Nicholson was unable to enter on opening night. Studio 54 was like no other place in New York. From the moment it opened its 11,000 square foot dance floor, it was packed with celebrities dying to get in. Olivia Newton-John, Michael Jackson, Woody Allen, Andy Warhol, Elizabeth Taylor, Dolly Parton, Mick Jagger, Tina Turner. You get the idea. These were just some of the visitors to Studio 54. Almost every night since it opened its doors on April 26, 1977, it was packed to capacity. Almost 2,000 people a night. And if you considered yourself cool, you wanted to get into Studio 54, but there was no guarantee you'd get in. There was someone stopping the flow. And that someone at the door of Studio 54 was there night after night. He'd show up at 11:30 p.m., he'd get on a step stool, and he'd stand above the crowd. And then he'd pick who could get into the club that night and who was to be turned away. His name is Steve Rubel, part owner and the person who made sure that the studio was one of the most irresistible places in New York. So what made Studio 54 so irresistible when there were so many cool places in New York at the time? Let's take a look at 3 elements, as we always do. However, we're going to look at these 3 elements in 3 different podcasts because they're quite substantial and you'll be listening to this forever. So we're going to do it in 3 podcasts. But let's start off with just naming the 3 elements. What are those 3 elements? The first is the buffet versus specialty. The second is exclusivity. And the third is pre-sell or build-up. Let's start off with the buffet versus specialty principle. If you were to go to lynda.com, you'd be faced with a buffet. On lynda.com, there are hundreds of tutorials on software, business, and creative skills. In 2004 alone, there were over 100 courses on the site, and that course number has gone up exponentially. For the past few years, lynda.com has been adding more than 18 hours of content almost every single day of the year. That means you are likely to run into thousands of hours of tutorials and topics such as Photoshop and computer animation and 3D animation and photography. And at the time of recording this podcast, there are 224,000 tutorials. Now that's a huge buffet, don't you agree? As humans, we're primed for buffets. We love the eat all you want concept, and it's even better if the food is of an extremely high quality, which lynda.com is. Every single video is just amazing. Now, that means as a potential client of lynda.com, you can access their content for just $250 an hour. I said $250 an hour. I meant $250 a year. Immediately you can see why this kind of deal is irresistible. If you decide you want to learn a program like InDesign, you can easily do so because there are at least a dozen courses on InDesign alone. If you wanted to learn how to work with WordPress, there's a mountain of instruction already in place. So no matter where you look, the volume and the quantity of the information on lynda.com just tantalizes you. And this brings us to our first principle, which is the buffet principle. If you offer your clients an enormous amount of something, they're instantly drawn towards it, whether they can consume it or not. When given a buffet option, few of us can stop ourselves from feeling the need to buy that product or service. So when you look at 5000bc.com, you get a buffet option. 5000bc is the membership site at psychotactics.com. And the moment you go to the sales page at 5000bc.com, you feel, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. There's this feeling of a ton of information sitting within 5000bc. And it's true, because when you get in, you find that there are hundreds of articles on topics such as copywriting and web design and branding and lead generation. And this is the reason why most clients tend to sign up to the membership site at 5000bc. When clients get to Psychotactics, they tend to read the newsletter for a while, and then they might end up buying the Brain Audit and a few other books. And then they're just hanging around when 5000bc comes onto their radar. They've probably tried to find some answers before, they've probably tried to be members of some other membership site, but 5000bc seems to attract them. And at that point in time, the concept kicks in. At $259 a year, which is remarkably similar to lynda.com, clients can get not only a ton of curated content, but also have the opportunity to ask me hundreds of questions if they wanted to, some of which are answered within hours, if not minutes. So the concept of buffet becomes impossible to resist. And this has been the main factor in attracting clients to 5000bc since we started it way back in 2003. Studio 54 put out a buffet of fantasy. The magazine Vanity Fair describes it as a giddy epicenter of 70s hedonism. A disco hothouse of beautiful people, endless cocaine, and every kind of sex. Once you were within the velvet ropes, you were exposed to the raunchiness, debauchery, and creativity of an unimaginable scale. It felt like you were going to a new place every night, says Kevin Haley, then a model and now a Hollywood director. And you were, because they changed it all the time for the parties. And then he goes on to talk about the Dolly Parton party. And he talks about how they had a little farm with bales of hay and live farm animals and pigs and goats and sheep. But that was just one type of party. The designer Karl Lagerfeld, he had a party. It was an 18th century kind of party with busboys designed as courtiers and powdered wigs, and then at 3 a.m. they decide to have a live concert. a reggae concert. Another night might bring Bianca Jagger popping out of a birthday cake. Some nights might bring in a sea of glitter. Another night, Lady Godiva on a horse. Or just Hell's Angels on Harleys on the dance floor. You didn't know what to expect when you entered through the doors of Studio 54. And that is what a buffet concept is all about. It's just this wide array of stuff that people cannot help but want. Now, that is just one way of getting to the customer. The second way is the complete opposite. And that is when you take away everything and you create a specialty offer. So you remember lynda.com where you get over 200,000 tutorials? Remember the price? Yes, it's $250 a year. That means that you can get 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 InDesign courses at lynda.com, and it's all within that $250 a year. And yet at Psychotactics, we sell an InDesign course that is at $269. It's not an entire course in InDesign. It's not even a partial one. All the course promises is one thing. It shows you how to create an outstanding ebook in InDesign in less than an hour. Now, if you were to go out there and to learn a course in InDesign, you'd be likely to take at least 18 hours to pick it up the first time around. And when you finished your first 18-hour stint, you would have to do it again, maybe another 18 hours. And then just to figure out what you're going to do with it, how you're going to create this ebook that looks amazing, that would take another 18 hours. So now you have 54 hours that you have to deal with. And this is where the specialty offer makes a huge difference to the client. Instead of wading through hours of material, they get right to the point. So the specialty offer is where you're not actually giving them the choice. You're reducing the amount of choices they have and you're going straight to the point. And immediately this concept works whether it is for courses or training or products or just about anything. Take a smartphone, for instance. Now, most of us want smartphones that have all the bells and whistles. We can't have enough. We want this whole buffet kind of smartphone. But what if you want a cell phone that just makes calls? There is a phone. There are several phones, in fact. And there is one called the Doro Phone Easy 626. And it does just what you'd expect a cell phone to do. It makes calls. It's like the InDesign course that we sell at Psychotactics. It's not meant for everyone. It's meant for a smaller audience, and that audience finds it irresistible. But what does this mean for you when you're selling a product or a service? It means that you can have your cake and eat it too. If you've been at Psychotactics for a little while, you know that the main book at Psychotactics is The Brain Audit. And The Brain Audit is like a buffet. It's like most books. It has several chapters and it goes for 180 pages. Now, there are different elements to The Brain Audit. So it's, the chapter 1 on problem, the second one on solution, the third on target profile. And all of these are like different dishes in a buffet. So what are you going to do? You can isolate them. You can take them apart. And that's what we did. We isolated the chapters. So we have a book on testimonials, and that's over 100 pages. Now, testimonials is within the Brain Audit already, but you go deeper and you create an isolation factor, and you create a separate book on testimonials. Uniqueness is one of the elements that's explained in the Brain Audit. It's not like it's a few pages. I think it's about 20, 25 pages. But then we have a uniqueness course, which goes for 3 days. So what is happening here is you have the buffet mentality where the Brain Audit spans the whole spectrum, which is the problem, solution, target profile, the objections, risk reversal, testimonials, and finally uniqueness. So you learn all of that within 180 pages, but then you can isolate every single one of those bags and make it into a workshop or a training or something else. And so what you've got is the whole factor of the buffet and the specialty going at the same time or at separate times. It depends on how you structure it, which means that you can offer this whole range of stuff as a web designer, a whole range of stuff as a copywriter, a whole range of stuff as a service provider, or isolate it. And you can charge more for the isolation sometimes than the whole range of stuff. Studio 54 catered to almost 2,000 people a night, yet there was isolation in place. So if you were part of the select few, you could always go down to the basement. And the basement was essentially a storage area connected by zigzagging passageways. And the in crowd was in the basement. They were away from the party upstairs, mostly talking, drinking lots of vodka. So they had that factor of buffet and isolation. To be irresistible, you don't have to choose between a buffet and specialty items. So where would you start? Would you create a buffet or would you create a specialty item? This is a very difficult question to answer, isn't it? When we started out at Psychotactics, I had no idea. I didn't know that we were going to do buffet or specialty items, or didn't even know what these terms were all about because, of course, I just made them up right now. But the point is that we wrote the brain audit. And when I wrote the brain audit, I just wrote it as an instruction manual, a little booklet. And so in reality, that was a kind of specialty item. But as it expanded, it went from 16 pages to 20 pages to 50 pages to what it is right now, which is 180 pages. It became a buffet. It became all of this stuff packed into one book. And then while looking at that, I realized, oh, wait a second, we could spend a lot of time just talking about target profile and how to do the interview and how to get the clients to write the copy for you instead of slaving over the copy. And so that becomes a specialty item. Once you've done the buffet thing, you think, wait a second, I just want to have this one meal and I just want to enjoy it. And that's your specialty item. And as a business, you can do both. You can do the buffet and the specialty item. But I really think that my advice would be start with the buffet, because we have so much information in our heads, we need to put it down on paper. If we don't put it down on paper, we're not really clear where we're going. But once we have that buffet in place, we can go and say, wait a second, the clients really love this one meal, or they love that one, and let's have it separately. Let's have it as a special meal. And look at it from a party point of view. Say you're having a party and you could have, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 dishes. Or you could have one special meal. And I do this often. Sometimes I will cook 5, 6 dishes, and you've got this buffet syndrome. And of course, people mix everything together. They go and put the yogurt on the rice, and they put the pork next to the vegetables, and often the buffet is a mishmash. But then you do this special thing, just one biryani, or just a pork vindaloo. And right away you can see the difference. There's this focus. Now, it's not to say that one is better than the other. It's just different ways to create this factor of irresistibility, of exclusivity. And they both work side by side. So that brings us to the end of this podcast. And of course, we'll continue it in the second episode and possibly the third episode. It depends on how long it takes. I don't know yet, so we'll see. It's now time to do the summary. So what did we cover today? The first thing we covered was the buffet versus the specialty principle. And the buffet principle was like lynda.com. And lynda.com has 200,000 or more tutorials, and it's great. I'm a member of lynda.com. It's a great site. And when you go there, you will find different episodes that talk about, say, a program like InDesign. And that becomes just amazingly important to you. It becomes this factor of irresistibility. You want to have that buffet. You just want to chomp through all of it. And yes, you can do that. And that's how most books are written, most episodes are created, most serials are created. It's all buffet style. You want to eat all of it. That's what makes it so interesting. But on the other hand, you have the specialty. So you can take that same InDesign concept and you can charge more for it because it saves time. When you think about it, would you rather go through 54 hours of trying to figure out how InDesign works and then writing your ebook or creating your ebook or designing your ebook, or do it in 1 hour? So the specialty works and the buffet works, and they're both very irresistible to the client, and the client doesn't really see the problem. And that's why the brain audit works. Now, the brain audit might be 180 pages. That's very buffet-like. But hey, the client is also willing to just take one of those chapters, one of those elements, which is like, the secret life of testimonials, and then go deep into that. So you've got this situation where you can create both the buffet and the specialty. If you've got a service, you're offering 10 different things. Go ahead, offer 10 different things. But then isolate one of them. Make that the specialty. Now suddenly you've got something which is really powerful. You can charge more for the specialty than the entire buffet. And you think that's crazy, right? But hey, sometimes a dish costs $35 and $40 and $50 a dish. And you can get a whole buffet for $6 or $10 or $20. So there you go. That's real life stuff. That's not just me making it up. But the question is, what can you do today? And I don't think you can write a book today. I don't think you can create all your services today. I don't think you can do all of that stuff today. I'm pretty sure you can't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. The only thing you can do is you can plan today. You can sit down, get a piece of paper, get a pen. I'd use a pencil, and plan it out. What is going to be your buffet item with your services? What is going to be the buffet with your product? And then what is going to be the specialty? And you will find that customers will want both of them. They will buy both of them, not just one of them. Because that's what we find with all our products and services. If you look at the article writing course, people will buy the article writing course, and it goes for 3 months, or you buy the home study. But then they will do the 50 words, the first 50 words course. And then they will do the headlines course. Now, all of that was part of the article writing course. But it has become a specialty item. It's gone into more depth. It's like that biryani that I'm creating, just so that you can focus on it. So you can have your cake and you can eat it too. That's the end of all the food analogies that you can get in a podcast.
This brings us to the end of this podcast, and we realize that we have to make this factor of irresistibility. It doesn't automatically show up. And curiosity is a very good way to create irresistibility. One of the best ways is to write better headlines. When you write better headlines, you attract clients. They open up your newsletters. They click through to look at whatever it is you're selling. And that's what the headline course is all about. It starts on the 6th of September, and we go through 8 weeks of writing headlines. It is one of the most fun courses you will ever attend online or offline. And it is one of my personal favorites because you see how a headline is created. There's a very specific science to it. you can see how curiosity is created step by step. That's how a psychotactics course is created. It's created to drive home skill, not information. By the end of the course, you're able to look at a headline and see what's wrong with it. Then you're able to fix that headline. And you can do this for any business, not just your own. To be first in line on the psychotactics list, you have to be a member of 5000 BC. If you're not a member of 5000 BC, you have to at least be on the psychotactics list. So sign up to the newsletter and you'll get a notification about the headlines course, which starts in September. If you want to go back and listen to the rest of the irresistibility chapters, you'll have to go back to podcast 68 and 69, I think. And that's where you'll get the rest of them. That's it from Psychotactics Land. It's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye.